Xeno meaning stranger and phobia meaning fear. Two words taken from the original Greek xenophobia. Combined, it means the fear or dislike of strangers. Are we a xenophobic nation? Let's get started. Good evening and welcome to the Democracy Gauge. I'm Bongani Bingo. Listen, this program assesses your lived experience of democracy over the last 25 years. We also take time to reflect on the South African mindset and attitude, and that leads us to tonight's topic. Are we a xenophobic nation? Xenophobia is a word to describe fear, the hatred, or even discriminatory attitudes towards foreigners or strangers. The Human Sciences Research Council tells us that 62 foreign migrants died and more than 200,000 were displaced during the xenophobic attacks in this country just over a decade ago. So we must caution that in our discussion, we're not presuming that all South Africans are xenophobic, but how has the term even found itself in our society? So our poll question then tonight: are we a xenophobic nation? You choose from our standard three colors. Green is for yes, yellow is for maybe, and of course red is for no. You can go to sabcnews.com to vote. We of course always extend the conversation to Facebook and Twitter. Remember to use the hashtags SABCDG25 and hashtag SABCNews. So why are foreign nationals a threat to some South Africans? I mean, often they are seeking refuge from socio-political hardships in their countries of birth. Are we afraid that perhaps they are here to steal jobs, of which we know, of course, they're already few and far between? Do xenophobic people even understand why foreign nationals make their way to South Africa? In our attempt to answer those questions, our reporter Hitekani Magwetse produced the following story.
These images in May 2008 sent shockwaves around the world. South Africa experienced its first intense spate of xenophobic violence, followed by another outburst in 2015. And there were casualties. In both incidents, foreign nationals in townships across the country were left beaten, their shops looted, some torched, and others kidnapped.
He disappeared and until today he's not back. It looked like he was killed.
In the end, families were left displaced. Some decided to flee back to their countries of origin, while others chose to stay.
We all agree and willingly want to go there.
A daunting decision, especially since issues such as a lack of housing, unemployment and business competition were given as reasons for the attacks. Now, almost 11 years since the first incident, the reasons still exist, and so does the anger among some locals.
We end up taking the law into our own hands because the government doesn't do anything for us. Foreign nationals come into the country and conduct the same business as us for less. They even sell things for a lower price to us and steal our customers. It hurts our business.
Many in destitute communities such as this feel neglected by government.
The government doesn't care about South Africans, it cares more about foreign nationals. That's why they don't want anything done to them. They even feel at home in our country. It's not right.
Since the last attacks, the landscape of some communities has not changed.
Xenophobic attacks will definitely come because the government has not done anything to change our situation as South Africans. We'll have to force them out of the country before they become equal to us.
This hawker is among those who fled for their lives during the 2015 xenophobic attacks in Alexandra, north of Johannesburg. A widow for over 10 years, she denies stealing any South African's job.
I never stole anyone's job. I've been working in the streets every day since I came here in 2002. I work in rain and burn in the sun. Whatever little I get paid, I put it together to support my family. South Africans don't like us because they don't want to stand up for themselves and work.
But returning to a country of origin is not an option.
South Africans don't understand. We know that they hate us, but in our countries, the situation is worse than it is here.
While foreign nationals in South Africa are caught between a rock and a hard place, some South Africans believe the economic situation is so dire, they too are feeling the squeeze. Guage, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, as you can see from that piece, there's a clear sense that xenophobia sometimes comes from a sense that citizens feel threatened by those coming from outside. Acts of xenophobia are generally seen in more economically distressed settlements. Well, to discuss tonight's topic, we're joined by Professor Lauren Landau, who is the South African Research Chair in the Mobility and Politics of Difference at the African Centre for Migration and Society, and it's based at Wits University. All right, Prof, it's a loaded title that I've just read there. Good evening and welcome to the Democracy Gauge.
Thank you.
I mean, we're talking about xenophobia. I've described it as the fear and mistrust of strangers. South Africa is founded on the assistance of so many countries, particularly on the continent, who helped us fight the scourge of apartheid. Why have we, in a sense, turned our backs on our brothers and sisters?
It's a great question, and I think the first thing to say is that most South Africans have not. There are maybe 1 million, maybe 2 million foreigners in the country. Most of them live relatively peacefully with South Africans, even in the poor communities, even in some of the most sort of destitute areas. The question is, why do some people turn on them? And I think what we see there is they turn on them because they're a resource. They turn on them because they can take their things, because they can win votes, because they can get their houses. So I think we have to see this as rooted in the politics of the places where they live.
You talk about the politics. We've seen the temperature change towards foreign nationals in South Africa. The major political parties have made migration an issue, and it's something that you might see in Western countries on sort of the right of the political spectrum. Why has that emerged in South Africa?
Well, I think it comes out of a couple places. One is that they learned from the attacks in 2008, that the politicians at the very local level, they used xenophobic language. They're still there. They gained support. And the national politicians, the mayors, they're realizing that it's a winning strategy. And part of it is that they've run out of other ideas and they need a distraction. This is why we see it in the US, why we see it in Europe. It's a way of taking our attention away from the fact that people remain poor. It's a highly unequal, highly dangerous country.
So whether it's perpetrated or perpetuated by leaders or people on the ground, they really are scapegoats, aren't they, foreign migrants?
They become a scapegoat, they become a resource for politicians who need something to say to win votes.
Given, though, the kind of violence we've seen in South Africa, how irresponsible is it to inflame the situation, as it were?
Well, I think it's a bad thing on multiple fronts. One, people die. We had reports this afternoon that 2 people were dying in KZN, in shop attacks. But I think it's also irresponsible to the politics and to our democracy in that we're distracting ourselves. We're saying, look, the reasons we don't have jobs are because of immigration. The reason we're unsafe is because of immigration. It's just not true. As long as we continue to repeat that language, we're not going to address the real source of our problems.
Your centre, of course, focuses on migration. I mean, what do the stats, what information do you have? Are migrants good or bad for an economy like ours?
I think it depends where you look. On aggregate, it's probably a fairly neutral effect. Some come in, create jobs. Some obviously come in and cause problems that we wouldn't want them to do. I think the issue is that at this point, they become a scapegoat, and that is making them bad for the country.
Some will argue, though, I mean, the Minister of Health often makes the point that, for example, our hospitals are stretched because of the burden, the extra burden foreign migrants place on the system that didn't budget for them.
Well, I don't want to diminish the fact that there are challenges when you have migration. But if you look at Gauteng or Johannesburg or Cape Town, the problem is not that there are foreigners coming in. The problem is that South Africans have moved into these areas because this is where the jobs are, and they never planned for them. They didn't project the population growth. They haven't planned. They haven't invested. And so we're short of services. You take away the foreigners, we're not going to see a big improvement.
How do you deal with people on the ground who say, you know, they've taken over our neighborhoods, they've got shops, they seem to be thriving, we're struggling, we're still behind, they're entrepreneurial. What are they doing right that we can't seem to get right?
I think there's different ways in which you have to deal. The first is to really understand where their frustrations are coming from. And many of their anxieties, of course, are deeply legitimate. They are poor. They've been waiting for services, for housing, for security for a long time. The question is, how do we engage so that they realize the reason they don't have those things is not because of foreigners. It's because of the way in which government has run or administered these areas, or because of the way the economy is working.
Is there something to be said also about the standards of education in some of the countries where a lot of migrants come from, that they tend to be, in some cases, better skilled than the average South African? Is there a case to be made for that?
I think we see that in South Africa. We see that around the world. The people who move far internationally tend to be the best, the brightest, the most entrepreneurial, the risk takers. They come, they start businesses, they don't have a social network. They've got to, if they come, and they've got to survive. So they start. And that is competition, but it also creates business, it creates trade, it makes the region stronger through remittances. So this is how we benefit. The question is, can we get over the fact that we feel that this is a threat?
Well, I mentioned before we played our piece from Hitekani Makwetsi, the violence, the levels of violence that we saw in 2008. I mean, we've seen flares a little bit since then, but nothing quite to that extent. Can that sort of thing happen again?
Well, I think we've seen it happen many times. As you say, this flared up, there's been attacks. Many more people have died since 2008 than died in those attacks. They're just dying at a slower pace, but a more consistent one. I think the question is, what do we do about it? And today the government launched its National Action Plan on racism and xenophobia, but it doesn't really include any plan for how to deal with this. We need better policing, we need better interventions, we need politicians to stop scapegoating. None of those things are stopping. So I think the violence very likely will occur again.
So when our politicians talk about, you know, porous borders, our borders being overrun, the idea that, illegal migration is a problem, how do we balance the lack of resources on the ground with the ease with which those statements can be made?
I think some of it has to do with politicians making a commitment to be honest, which is maybe asking a little too much, but also for South Africans to say, look, stop trying to distract us. We know that the problem is not migrants. The problem is you haven't delivered on your promises.
Because also cynically, you get the sense at times the politicians themselves, some of them don't quite believe what they're saying about this.
Well, when you look at some of what they say, it's pretty unlikely. I mean, it's a stretch, but they know that they can sell it to us.
So, your view, are we a xenophobic nation? We've got three colors. Green is for yes, yellow maybe, red no. Which do you pick?
Well, I'll do the classic academic. I'll pick the one in the middle, in the yellow. I think there's clearly elements of xenophobia. What worries me less is that the xenophobic attitudes is that we're doing nothing about it and it so easily turns into violence. All
right, we'll have to leave it there. You're sitting on the fence on this one. But of course, it is a real conversation. It's important to have because, as you and I have discussed, sometimes the consequences can be tragic. Thank you so much, Prof. Landau, for joining us here on the Democracy Gauge. Now, you can interact with our poll by going to sabcnews.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Remember to use our hashtags SABCDG25 and SABC News. Tonight, our poll question, we're asking, are we a xenophobic nation? Green is for yes, yellow maybe, red for no. We'll share some of your views after this quick break.
Legal hassles?
Clientele legal!
That's it. We lost. Problems with the neighbors?
Clientele legal!
Rental disputes? Advice on maintenance matters? Drawing up a will? Clientele Legal will speak up for you.
Clientele Legal not only solved my labor matter, but also restored my confidence, and I walked out there feeling bigger than when I walked in.
It's definitely a value for money. I didn't pay a cent. My monthly premiums covered everything.
Take it or leave it.
Labor issues?
Clientele Legal. This is unacceptable. I have rights.
Problems with a mechanic?
Clientele Legal.
You need a lawyer. Professional lawyers, professional advice at an affordable price. SMS rights to 32281 and we'll call you back. SMS now.
On the 7th of February, the season premiere of One Day Leader is coming to a TV screen near you. One Day Leader Season 7 is at 9 p.m. on SABC 1 Mzansi for sure.
Judges, are you sure of your choices today?
One Day Leader, Thursdays at 9 p.m. on SABC 1 Mzansi for sure.
Welcome back. Well, we always say it's all about you here on the Democracy Gauge. So let's find out what people are saying on social media. Let's go to Twitter, for example, asking the question tonight, are we a xenophobic nation? All right, here's one tweeter, Lika Samolo, says, South Africa is a peaceful country because it does allow all nations, including illegal immigrants, to come here without proper documents. ANC careless about safety of South Africans. So I would say that tweet is a little in the middle, I think, saying one thing and yet another at the same time. All right, Biggie says, in Zim, the Zimbabweans learn to do business and go for courses like building, carpentry from foreigners, Zambians, Malawians, Mozambicans. We live side by side with their vending stalls, no fighting. Mugabe gave them IDs. We're all Africans breathing the same air. And I suppose you could interpret that to mean this is something that has happened in other countries before. Once Zimbabwe was the haven, we have become that. Jeffrey says, listen, this is caused by frustrations for those who are given a mandate to look after the country. Giving green light to illegal foreigners is wrong, I imagine he means. Making fraudulent papers to be legal and giving friends special treatment because being liked is wrong. I mean, mixed sentiments there, I think, echoing some of what we heard from Prof. Landau about perhaps this issue is one that people use for scapegoating. Anthony says the problem is that they vent their anger of non-service delivery on foreigners. That's the nub of the issue, is it not? When people are frustrated, when people don't feel that they're getting the services, it's easy to look for targets that you can pick off that may not be able to speak so much for themselves. Finally, Terry says South Africa is filled with frustrated citizens who cannot understand why foreign nationals seem to be getting the better side of the economic coin, while opportunities are being enjoyed by the politically connected few. So perhaps in all honesty, the discussion is around what we are not doing right as a country ourselves, as a population, certainly in terms of what the political leaders of the country are doing for us. Maybe that's where the focus should be. All right, we'll get some more of your views coming up. All right, the People's View allows you to interact with us directly and to do so live, to share your views candidly. So we've got a WhatsApp video that has been sent to us. Let's take a look.
As far as I see South Africa is still a xenophobic country. As you see that even if one South African are not getting any jobs, are going to accuse those who came from other countries that are the one who stole our job. That's ridiculous. No one is stealing our jobs. It's because of sometimes we're going to find out us as South Africans are lazy, and then because of we are still xenophobic, we're going to accuse those who came from other countries. Even if a place where they are selling drugs or whatever, we're going to accuse those who came from other countries. In reality, some of them are like us South Africans are innocent. As us South Africans, they are those who are selling drugs, and still there are those who are not selling drugs, but are going to say, no, let's chase away these people that came from another countries.
Yeah, absolutely. There is something to be said about perhaps thinking about the context of what brings people to South Africa. By the way, if you want to send us a WhatsApp video, there's the number on your screen. You can send us a short video. Tell us who you are. Tell us where you are from. The number is 0817328421. That's the number on your screen. You can send us a WhatsApp video if you want to be part of the People's View. Of course, we can always interact with you on Messenger on Skype. We can call you in. If you want to be a part of the show in that way, send us an email to dg25@sabc.co.za. At the end of this episode, I'll be throwing forward to tomorrow's topic. After the break, we will meet Kolo Dibetso, who reminisces about the role Lesotho played in South Africa's road to democracy. Part of why we're having this conversation is to remember others helped us as well. Stay tuned.
On Trends Travel, we bring you a full guide on all things lifestyle related. With so much to discover, we give you comprehensive reviews of places to visit, music, travel, and food. We also explore the arts, whether on or off stage. All this and more. Be sure to tune into Trends Travel, Saturdays at 5:30 p.m.
The sheer human misery, its devastation and fury, lives swept away in a wink.
It's very difficult. Some of the rooms that we visited had children who could not find their parents, and we cannot find the parents for them. You know, at UNICEF we try to pair and reunite children and families, but we have put out the calls for the parents and there's no response, so we fear the worst. So it is just a very difficult time in Beira. We need assistance. South Africa has been extremely strong, sending help from the government to this government, because the air assets, the planes that have been able to help in Beira, have been crucial for their assistance.
Cyclone Idai cuts a swathe of destruction across three SADC countries, Mozambique, Zimbabwe and Malawi.
We were sleeping with my 3 children and the house collapsed on us, and my 8-year-old child was killed. We managed to escape to the kitchen, which also collapsed on us again and killed my 4-year-old child.
Watch African Perspective for the latest news updates on Wednesday, 9:30 p.m. Central African Time on SABC News.
Did you know the big hole digging started in 1871 and ended on the 14th August 1914? The hole produced 2,722 kgs of diamonds. However, one diamond as huge as 490 carat of stone found in the open prior 1868 gave them the interest to dig. Extracted from 22.5 million tons of soil. Today, the hole sits at a breathtaking 214 meters deep. Kimberley Big Hole attracts tourists from all over the world, taking a vintage tram past the city, then cycling around the Big Hole.
Well, welcome back to the Democracy Gauge. Through this show, the SABC News has been profiling a different South African. We've crisscrossed the country from both within our borders and a little outside. And keeping with that theme, you can go to our website, sabcnews.com/elections. There is our map. You can click on any of these markers to find some of our previous stories. You can watch all the videos of the stories of individuals that we tell. So there is our map. Today, of course, we're focusing very much on the issue of xenophobia. We have to understand that to get to this democracy, our neighboring countries played a crucial role. Certainly, that was the case as far as Lesotho is concerned, taking South Africa on the road to freedom. Its proximity made it a strategic and valuable partner in the fight against apartheid. And for many activists, it was sort of a home away from home because it was so close. And so today, we are focusing on Kolo Dibetso, who remembers the role Lesotho played in the struggle.
Well, my name is Kolo Rankulupani Dibezo. I was born in Soweto, in a township called Dube. And my parents, especially my mom, is from Malizuku, from a village called Haramati. That's where she was born. So my relationship with Lesotho, it's very close and touching, because I had parents staying here, born here, and also the other parent, my father, born in South Africa. You know, Lesotho played a very important role in the politics of South Africa. Not only of South Africa. I mean, I was at a national university and I would meet quite a number of other guys from Namibia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique. They were catered here by the government of Lesotho. South Africans were much more taken care of during Tatela Jonathan's era. Let me tell you, we stayed with them. Let me tell you, they went to school without paying a cent for school fees. You know, they were at home. They were not refugees. You know, we met everywhere. We went to discuss with them. We socialized with them. You look at a number of other people who are already holding very crucial positions in South Africa. Take, for instance, the Minister of Finance. He was a student here. Talk about the former Vice President, Tuntate Mbeki, anyway. Yeah, exactly. All these crucial guys who are holding very powerful positions in South Africa are guys who came and got education here in Lesotho. Well, you know, politics, it's a game which countries play. Since Lesotho or other neighboring countries to South Africa played a certain role, we expect to see South Africa paying back to Lesotho or other countries like Botswana. But it doesn't work that way. You know, once you have got your independence, there are lots and lots of things which you have to take care of. What we need to do is to learn what it is which we can gain from South Africa.
So, do you remember where you were in the build-up to Freedom Day 25 years ago? Well, on this day in 1994, we go to the SABC archives and they take us back to when ANC supporters were marching in KwaZulu-Natal. Remember, of course, the times were tense. Political violence was certainly a mainstay of what was happening in the build-up to our historic poll.
Is a demonstration. People want to know, want free election. The people of the country must decide for themselves what sort of government they want. It must be a democratic government, free for all. And this is a demonstration to say that we want that sort of government, that sort of freedom.
But we're at the end of our show, so let's quickly then look at the results of tonight's poll. There it is popping up on your screen. 50% say yes, maybe 11, and the no's are at 39%. So that's the poll for today. Now, tomorrow we're asking, has state capture ruined our access to equal opportunities? That means that poll is open. Until tomorrow, from myself and Fortune, Ubusuku Benzolo, good night.
Witness the exhilarating drama between the Morokas and the Mabasos in general.